So now,
Miniver said that she was coming or not?
well, I tried to phone her,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't reach.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sometimes it is like, in Zambia, it
Mm.
can be the situation of the internet.
Yeah.
It is sometimes difficult. There it is. Okay, okay, okay. So I have conquered the first obstacle, and so I think we can start the proceedings, and as just to revive on what those monthly organizational meetings are all about, then I will read from the invitation just to remind us what we think we want to do. In this 12th monthly AHF organizational meeting, we look at the development in the various African countries since our last monthly meeting. We will exchange and share the initiatives and experiences of the participants in their activities for helping others, as well as moving towards building a humanist forum in their respective areas. In this meeting, we will place special importance on the development of humanist education and training for the younger generations. Uh, Well, in these meetings also we look together at the future of the African Humanist Forum in its humanizing process, the prospects of growth of widening collaborations with other like-minded organizations and institutions in Africa that are going in the same direction as us towards a better and a more human society for all without violence and discrimination. So this is the general idea. To this, I take like a formal start, but of course we are very used to the in the sharing. We simply we are very informal, and people talk about their experiences as it comes. So then also in the monthly meetings, we try to put the African Humanist Forum in context with the wider development in Africa, in the masses of Africa, and for that, what is happening around us in the world, because the African Humanist Forum, the correct name for it, definition is actually World Humanist Forum Africa, because in the international humanist movement we have that one, and we have also World Humanist Forum Asia, World Humanist Forum Latin America, and World Humanist Forum Europe. So, just a minute, people are coming in. So, for this reason, in this meeting, we will, I will show a video, a very, very interesting video with Jeffrey Sachs. He is the advisor to the Gutierrez, the president of the United Nations, and he is overseeing the matters of sustainable development. And this video that I really hope you like, in that he talks also about especially about the future of Africa. in a very interesting way and linking it to the general development in the world, where the world is moving very much so away from the hegemony of the United States that has been really having the power over the whole world and been very and has done a lot of bad things like the waging war on other nations and all that. And just a minute.
Julius,
And
sorry,
now there is a
is he a
yeah,
lawyer in the University of Toronto?
Jeffrey Sachs.
Yeah.
I am not aware of that.
Okay, I'm trying to Google it.
That would be another one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But
Yeah, that
continue.
would
Sorry.
be another. Yeah. But this is a kind of a novelty, but we try to, not always do the same thing. So having said that, it would be interesting to hear if some of you have started or are thinking of starting, especially project of education and this main emphasis that we have. You could tell us about if you are doing education of young children. So the floor is open if someone wants to share. Dorothy, I think you have been working with children and parents in a project you have with Spin and Bifita project in Kisumu. Might you be able to tell us a little bit about that? You have been also doing educational work, or what? I'm just asking you, Dorothy. You're muted if you are.
Yeah, I have a school.
Yes,
I have a school in Kisumu, not specifically in Kisumu town, but Kisumu County,
yes,
and it's a preschool. It is where we have the small children
yes.
from play group to grade 3. So I have a small children, and also I also work with women in the community, whereby we go around school to talk with the people about gender-based violence. And I've always tried to share what we are doing here with the children in other schools, where we distribute sanitary towels, and also women in the community whom we always have dialogues with in a partner organization called Peperusha Binti. So
Okay.
I've just been trying to introduce what we normally learn here every Thursday. And the other time when I was in Machakos, we had a meeting of eye monitor, and I was trying to use whatever we normally do, the practices and relaxing, which Julius normally teaches here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everybody was really, really grateful about it, because it was a group of women who are, some of them are younger. It was a mixture, and we were being taught about community-led monitor tool, which is going to be used in the health center. But every morning I used to go with them in the process of what we are being taught here, and we find that most of the people were getting it relaxing, because in all these places you find that people have a lot of mental health issues, and the
Hmm.
way the economy is going, and everything. So you find that even in those spaces, it is very grateful. And even in school where we have the young children, the children are facing a lot because the economy is going very high. And also, if you can see the climate change, so many people don't understand about it. So you find that when you do this activity, even one of them, you find everybody's relaxed, and even the kids, you can tell them to draw what they felt, and you'll find that kids try to use most of time, they try to use bright colors after these, and that one in child psychology, you find that a child who uses bright color most of the time is a child who is relaxed and doesn't have stress. So that is the way I realize that what we are doing here is benefiting to people around me.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I'm thinking, Antonio, you might
Yes, thank you.
tell
It's
us.
very interesting, Dorothy. Thank you.
Yes. I'm thanking Antonio, since we have seen that in the educational projects, people are asking if there is a material like for humanist education of children and grown-ups. So can you tell us something about what has been done in this respect in South America?
Yes, of course. I mean, because we have more friends of ours in South America who have been for a longer time with humanism, and they have developed or they have adapted some of the techniques, as Dorothy was explaining, for example, with relaxation. There are lots of variants on different types of relaxation that you could even implement to teach children and to teenagers and to adult people, etc., because we are all constructed in the same way. We have external physical muscles, we have internal muscles, and through our mind, we can produce also a deeper psychological relaxation. So there are elements that can help and support anyone and every community group and every form of education. But on top of that, we have the adaptation of some of these techniques and other techniques that have been developed to promote nonviolence action, especially amongst young people, because we understand that it's only if the general attitude that the population has towards violence as something completely unacceptable that we have to remove through education, remove it from our behavior and from our societies. And that requires a very dedicated work that all of us could undertake in whichever ambit we are. It was just celebrated the World Day of Nonviolence, that is the anniversary of Gandhi, that was on the 2nd of October. And our friends have organized lots of interesting events in different countries. And from there are many things also written in our magazine that is called Presenza. Presenza is a magazine that, or a newspaper, or is rather a news agency that promotes nonviolence in all its forms. And therefore, Presenza is something that we were discussing with Julius, and probably Julius have been discussing with Ragnar, that we should incorporate for your easy and daily use in the works that you are doing, because there are all types of articles that are published. For example, I just help correcting an article about the situation of social strife in Nigeria, not far from where you are, because really they have salaries at the moment, in spite of being an oil producing country, that people cannot live with that. And the government is very reluctant to negotiate, and then there are problems with the unions and problems with the government, etc. And the situation, the financial situation of the whole population is quite dramatic. And if you, for example, you will find a series of articles that refer to Africa, that refer to Latin America, that refer to all the hottest problems affecting in different parts of the world, but they are treated from the perspective of nonviolence journalism. So it's not that we can take bans and start to condemn the other party and produce lots of strong emotions, because that will not be the solution. Another party would probably for a period of time will win, and later on the same thing will happen again and again, and in that manner violence perpetuates itself. So it will give you the experience or the viewpoint of presence of the humanist interpretation of lots of current situations. So we will see in which manner we can put either the most relevant articles of a week in the lists that you receive that information and where you can click the link and read the article, or at the same time we give you through links access to the publication, to Presencia International News Agency. That will be something that will contribute to your view of what is happening in society today, the view that you can take regarding many things happening in Africa in particular, and globally in the so-called developed world, the old imperialistic countries of Europe and the United States that are the big perpetrators of violence at the present stage. And so it will be something fairly educational that will give you a close approach and contact with the day-to-day reality that we face in our own countries or in the world at large. But what is important is where we started this conversation, that is to provide materials that you can apply, those who are like Dorothy involved intensely in education and in educational contact with the community itself, because there are so many problems that the ladies that are 18, 20 or whatever, they are facing other type of problems that are not the problems that the children face in the school when you are doing the school with young children. But you as a person doing education in the community, obviously you are in contact with all of them. And so we have to see in which way we can prepare the capacity to reach further from the strict ambit of the school with a very influential sort of experience and message to share with people. In that way, we will grow in numbers, in influence, and in people that is identify with our concern that, as Julius was saying before, is to build up forums in the regions of the world and to establish finally a global forum, a world forum. But for that, we need to have more things happening at the grassroots level. And this is the stage in which we are now in Africa. In other continents, we are more advanced because also we started before. But it's amazing when people get together, people from different activities and different ages and different levels of experience, how much they can do when they get together. It's the strength of the people, the human being united is immense. We are the people who can change everything in the world. And in these critical times that we are living, because seems to be the end of an era and the beginning of another one, we have to define new values, new ways of looking at things, new principles, and important reforms in the system of institutions that affect the world that are more conducive to the new characteristics that we have, where people have similar information, people are in contact with one another, and people have similar needs. And we have to cater for all that. So these groups can become something very interesting in terms of learning, in terms of contact, in terms of exchange of experience and mutual support.
Thank you very much, Antonio. It was very good overview.
Perfect.
And we can learn much from each other, and we can also learn from humanist activities all over the world. So
Yes.
we
And
are
now,
thinking in
now
the
you have
world.
that video that also will in itself be a very interesting piece of
Very
information.
educational, yes.
Because I have seen the video and I have other things to do, I will escape now.
Yeah.
But we will sit down and we will reform the plans of some of the things that we are doing, and we'll share with yourselves in the weeks to come.
Yeah. Thank you, Antonio. It's very good.
All the best. Very nice to see
I know
everyone.
you were busy, but thank you for your time.
You
Yeah.
too. Cheers.
Yes,
Bye.
yes. And I'm thinking now, you're welcome, Abel. Good to see you. Good to see that you are with us. Yeah, hello. Good to see you yourself.
Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome.
Elvis, I think that you
Hi, Abel. Nice to see
Yes,
you.
hello, Ragnar.
have Elvis. I think I think that you have some experience of education through art, through performances. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you see that come into the picture of
There is. Yes, I do. I've been in the education field for now 17 years, teaching
okay,
the non-formal setup in Kenya.
yeah,
I was involved in the education of when we had the humanist movement in Kenya. That was 2000, the year 2003 up to around 2009. Yeah, so I was feeding the humanist movement Kenya, the skid. So part of the education system and how learners learn, especially in the Kenyan setup, I have done that for 17 years now.
that's very nice to hear. So we can expect to enjoy from your long experience in this and find a way to share this and make like a kind of a network effort to spread this and share the experience we have inside our forum. And Elvis, I I think that in Kisumu, where you are, uh, you have had theater for education. Could you tell us about that type of education, Elvis? You're muted. You are muted if you are trying to speak.
Yeah, I was trying to set it up. I
No,
know, I know.
I'm talking to Elvis Otiampo in Kisumu.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yes,
yeah. Uh, could you tell us about the theater you are working with?
okay. The theater or the group I'm working with. And look at on the theater or the group I'm working with.
Yes, yes, with Edwin. Yeah,
Or the group I'm working with.
yeah. So
Okay,
what we,
so
yeah, please.
so in Kisumu, we work with an organization known as Amazon Theatrics Ensemble.
Okay,
So in Amazon Theatrics Ensemble, we normally do create advocacy to the community through performing art. So through performing art, we create some awareness to those any arising issues or matters that arise. So as we create awareness to the community dialogue, we form some barazas or we go to the market to form theater to the market, magnetic theater, or we form some skits that have some information to the that have a lot of information to the relevant people who we are going to talk to.
okay,
So after the skits or the performance, we normally ask them what have they seen to the skit or what have they learned from that performance. So after where we find a lot of people talking about or what they have seen in that skit, is it relating with their life or the life situation they are in today. So while we conduct the theater or the performance, now some people or the we a lot of the community or the other organizations can now call us to go and give the information to the people. So in case they have something to do with gender-based violence arising to the community. So as Amazon, us as Amazon, we are being told, then we form a certain skit that talk about the gender-based violence. How are these violence conducted to the community? So when we go to the community that the violence normally occurred, we settle, we mobilize people, we take them, they sit down, then the skit is performed, it is performed to them. Then someone from the group can stand, then ask a question, what have they learned from the skit, and are these things affecting them? So from that point, we can now learn. A lot of these people have been experiencing this thing from their household or from the community, but they keep quiet. So from this, the performance or the skits, a lot of people get learn. Then from that point, there are some aspect of the things we normally learn from this point. These are the games that they are the one we are starting with before we do the performance. So as the people have been seated down, so we do some games that can keep them relaxed and keep their mind in the things we want to do. So when the audience have relaxed and their mind is already set to what is going to be happening in this place, then we can have now the skit.
Now, this is very, very interesting, Elvis. Thank you very much for the sharing. I am a little bit following the time, and this video I was talking about, it is for half an hour. But if someone wants to add to the educational topic before we start, we can take a short while to hear. If someone wants to step forward and tell about educational experience in
Hello.
there's Walter.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, for me, I have something I need to share with you.
Okay, please.
For the last 2 weeks, I've been very much interacting with the prisoners in cells,
Okay.
and there is one thing I experienced.
You have been working with prisoners, education of prisoners.
You're muted.
You are muted, Walter.
Yes, okay. I was saying that I was having some interaction with the prisoners in the cells, and there are some experiences I gained from there. And for me, I thought that it's good for me to share with you.
Okay.
One thing, according to the Constitution of Kenya, once when somebody was condemned to death, there was a death sentence whereby somebody was being taken to the cell and hanged to death. But unfortunately, that
You're muted again.
I'm sorry, I don't know why is it doing. Now I tried to talk with the prisoners, and they were saying that they are going through a lot in the prisons. One thing they are talking about is that the sentence they are being sentenced in the prisons, that you find somebody is being life sentence in the prisons. Maybe you can find somebody of maybe 40 or 50 years of age is being sentenced to 40 years in prison. At the end of the day, what is he going to gain? What his family is going to gain from him? Because most of the time he's going to be in the prison. What role is he going to participate in the community? Now, that was one of the problems they are facing. they were saying instead of giving somebody that penalty, maybe 40 years in prison, and he is at maybe at 50 years, 40 plus 50, at the end of the day, he's going to spend 90 years. By the time he's going to get out of the cell, is 90 years. And the people in the society, they need his services. And I saw it's good for us to go and educate those people, even if they have some mistakes they have done in prisons. We need to educate them so that we give them hope, to tell them that to be in prison, it's not that you are in captivity. And for me, if it was my wish, I could have even faced maybe the parliament. If I was a parliamentarian, I could have put that motion in the parliament to do away with those penalties of giving that person that long time in prison. But at the end of the day, I thought it's good for us to have maybe some training, and we talk with those people, then we give them hope and we give them courage that at the end of the day, they will be okay. That's what I have.
Thank you very much, Walter. This was very touching and very interesting topic to take further.
Add just a little bit to this. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've been in Kenya.
Yeah.
I've been there where they it's not right to do a crime, but they sentence them for 40 years, 50 years for crime. We say 90 years. You know, this is not you know. In Iceland, if you murder someone, at top you can get 16 years, and then you serve 2/3 or half of it. This is one more reason to teach, to show us that we have to stand up. We have to, the mass of people, we have to stand up and discuss these things, and we have to stand up for people, stand up for human rights.
Mm-hmm.
This is not human rights. 90 years. Yes, yeah, what is that? For maybe rape. Okay, rape is very horrible. 50 years for rape. The justice system have to see the human right, okay? To do a crime is not good. And in the end, the one who do a crime is often the one who have been done crime. I know exactly what you, I've been watching this situation in Kenya and many countries for so many years. Been thinking, what can we do about this? We have to stand up, we have to talk about it, we have to stand up for human rights. But thank you, Walter, you're so right. And we have to also go and see the people in jails, give them hope, show them that we care about them, they are human beings as we are. Like it's a good project.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Ragnar, thank you very much. But I think now we need to start should start the video, and it tests my skills. I have not done it properly before, but I will now try. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yesterday, I briefly tried to take the story from the year 700 to 2000, and so now I'll try to take the story from 2000 to today quite quickly. First, we're in a new economic world in that the North Atlantic world, which was the part of the world that industrialized roughly 100 years or 150 years ahead of the rest, now faces the catching up of the rest of the world. So there's a radical, rapid technological convergence taking place. That convergence is reaching even the poorest places of the world. When that technological convergence occurs, it shows up in the data as very rapid economic growth. China experienced economic growth of roughly 10% per year during the period 1980 to 2020. When you grow at 10% a year by the rule of 70, which I hope people know, divide 70 by the annual growth rate, and that tells you the doubling period. So if you are growing at 10% per year, 70 divided by 10 means a doubling rate of every 7 years. That means that in 35 years, you will have 5 doublings, or 2 to the 5th power. That means that the economy would expand 32 times in a 35-year period. That's what happened in China. The country went from poverty because of this century of disaster that I spoke briefly about yesterday to recovery at an astounding rate. And by around 2015, China had reached essentially the technological frontier in a number of different fields. China's now one of the 3 centers of frontier innovation, the others being Europe and the United States. So we have 3 centers of global innovation: the US, Europe, and Northeast Asia, China, Japan, Korea, together. And arguably the Northeast Asian pole of innovation is the largest actually in the world today, bigger than the United States and Europe, but that's roughly 3 equivalent areas. Second, this has given rise to tremendous geopolitical tension because the rise of China has upended the Western or North Atlantic dominance in the world. And the United States is having a deep neurotic reaction to this. And it is a psychological as well as a geopolitical reaction. This was not expected at all. If you look at documents in 1990, 1995, 2000, even because they don't know how to do arithmetic very well in Washington, they did not know how to think about what the world would look like even 25.
Julius, you have to do skip up. Skip up.
If the Taliban, yeah.
Skip up.
30 years ahead.
Yeah.
In 1992, the U.S. leaders realized, they thought that the U.S. was the unipolar power completely unchallenged in all regions of the world. China wasn't even mentioned, and Russia was a has-been. And these assumptions were really flawed. There was a narrative in the US. I knew it, I objected to it all along, but the narrative was that China just copies, China can't innovate, China makes cheap goods, China will never really amount to anything. Paul Krugman wrote a paper that was widely circulated called The Myth of the East Asian Miracle. I wrote a book that year called Emerging Asia for the Asian Development Bank that said this is going to be a wonderful 25 years for Asia because Asia is rapidly converging in technologies. I was right, I have to say. This was not a myth. This was just part of a rebalancing historically. But it means strong geopolitical tensions. Sadly, because there's nothing intrinsically threatening about this. This is actually what we should want, which is the spread of prosperity and technology, but it's interpreted as an us versus them reaction. Economists generally have the mindset of win-win, and geostrategists generally have the mindset of win-lose, so that in a geostrategic mindset, someone else's progress is your relative loss, which is really a nasty way to look at the world, by the way, and one that is guaranteed to be destructive. And that's why the realists speak of the tragedy of great power politics. They admit that this is a tragedy. I want us to avoid the tragedy. We don't need tragedies. We actually need cooperation. The third dimension of all of this, which brings us here and brought us the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, is that the scale of global economic activity is now so great that we really have pushed the planet to deep instabilities on all fronts. And of course, our politicians and the political system are very slow to react to this. They're scientifically negligent, they are at the hands of special interests, and they were not trained to understand what's going on. I had one of the most terrifying jobs in the world for 15 years, heading an institute with climate scientists. That's a very frightening thing to
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords, these.
do. I don't recommend it. Every day they come to you and tell you it's much worse than we thought. So for 15 years, these very, very intelligent scientists kept coming to me and explaining, Jeff, it's happening faster, it's worse than we thought, there are more dangers than we thought, there are more tipping points than we thought. Brilliant, soft-spoken people without any political agenda for 15 years terrified me. So I just want to try to terrify you just a little bit as well. Imagine James Hansen, one of the most brilliant climate scientists in the world, in my view, the lead climate scientist, a soft Midwest Iowa accent, whispering in your ear that the ice sheets are breaking up much faster than you think, and this will be a multi-meter sea level rise. And it's no joke, and the IPCC, he would tell me, is 5 or 10 years behind reality, because the IPCC is a consensus document, whereas Hansen is a leading scientist. Consensus lags the lead 5, 10, or 15 years. So I heard everything that we're hearing now 15 years ago. And I heard it from 2 gurus of science, how bad, and it's happening as they said. So I can tell you it's tracking what they told me 15 years ago. And they pointed out the consensus will get there, but there aren't enough published articles yet for the IPCC to regard this as a consensus, so they just don't understand yet. The ocean circulation is slowing. Biomes are being destroyed. Biodiversity is under massive, massive, rapid loss. The climate change is accelerating to around 0.36 degrees Celsius per decade, meaning that we're at 1.2 degrees above pre-industrial. In a decade, we'll be above 1.5 degrees pre-industrial on baseline. And what's going to happen is in the next few years, we'll exceed 1.5 degrees because we're in an El Nino event now, which is an interannual event in the Pacific Basin, which warms the Earth's temperature by 0.1 to 0.2 degrees C. We're coming out of a La Nina. We could be pushed above 1.5 degrees in the next 3 or 4 years because of the interannual events. But within 10 years, we will have reached the Paris limit with a very significant likelihood. So that's the environmental crisis. We're also in a period of technological upheaval. As you can see, basically, Ukraine is a place where everybody is trying their weapon systems right now. What's happening in the Ukraine war is that everybody's trying their new weapons. They're seeing how to digitize the weapons. They're seeing what kind of drones can work. This is a trial run for the big show. And this is why the US military is so enthusiastic about the war. It's actually a perfect war for the United States. No Americans that we know of are dying. Few are, but they don't get reported. But basically, the Ukrainians are doing the hard work, but US weapon systems are being tested. So this is technology, unfortunately, which is the weaponization of our technologies right now, especially digital and artificial intelligence. We've moved to a digitized weapons battlefield, and it's all of our major tech companies are part of the military-industrial complex now by design. They all have large contracts. They're all part of this show. And this is why there's also the technology war with China, stop the chips manufacturing and so forth. It's all extremely dangerous. So this is the context in which we're trying actually to do some nice things to end poverty and to get the environmental crisis under control. And I always refer to a statement of President Kennedy in his inaugural address on January 20th, 1961, which for me summarizes our real state of affairs. He said, "For the times are very different now. Mankind holds in his mortal hands the ability to end all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life." And so this is the real paradox of modernity, which is that our technological systems are so advanced now that we could, in 10 or 20 years, end extreme poverty, or we could destroy everything. And who knows? It's that real. We are not in good control anywhere. I don't even know who really controls political decisions in the United States. Now, it's very unclear. Certainly, the military has a very significant role in the decision-making, not only in the implementation. I don't know how great, they don't let me into those decisions, but watching, I'm not at all convinced. What I know is that American generals would have blown up the world many times over had they had their way over the last 75 years, because I've studied rather closely American military doctrine and nuclear doctrine, and it's extremely dangerous, and they're utterly naive. Don't think they're very clever. They're not so clever. They're really not so clever. They're just maybe your B students, okay? And they become generals. And I don't even want my A students having nuclear weapons in their hands. I don't want my B students. The C students are now the rich people who run Wall Street. It's really quite.
Oh, the first day that we signed up for Monday.com, our department was already able to connect our processes.
A show. Now, what do we do about it? The best part of our world is that the vast majority of humanity would like to survive, would like to prosper, and would like to have peace. And the vast majority of the member states of the United Nations are aligned with that view. There are not very many superpowers. There's the US and there's China and arguably, and Russia, I would say for sure, as a nuclear superpower. And not so many others. There are some important regional powers, of course. India, you might put in that front list. The world depends on the major powers not having conflict. That's what our survival depends on. And our survival depends on actually the world's major powers saying, you know, we have so many other things to deal with. We should really put aside some of these other issues. And Deng Xiaoping was extremely smart to say, Taiwan, that's for another generation. Okay, I would say that's still for another generation. Let's try to keep things calm. Let's try not to create a porcupine Taiwan so militarized that's bound to lead to war. By the way, that's how the Americans think. If we can just militarize Ukraine enough, that'll deter. Come on, that'll create war, guaranteed. That's why they got a B at best in the class, because they did not understand real strategy. So we need to be very careful, and we need to understand how to cooperate globally, and especially US, China, Europe, Russia, India, as absolutely all together. You cannot wipe out Russia from the map. European leaders want to close their eyes, wish 3 times, and Europe and Russia will disappear from the map. If Russia disappears from the map, we all disappear from the map. That is 11 time zones, 1,700 deployed strategic nuclear weapons, another 2,500 tactical nuclear weapons. There's no Russia disappearing from the map, except in the fairy tales of US generals. So we need Russia as a cooperative partner. Partner, real partner. And by the way, I've advised several Russian governments, they could be absolute regular partners. But the US was never able to take yes for an answer. If Gorbachev said we disband the Warsaw Pact, the US said, oh, we get it, we'll expand NATO to all your countries. No, that's not what we meant. Oh, we get it, we'll expand NATO to all your countries. That's the problem of not being able to take yes for an answer. So what do we need to do now? We really easily have the capacity to end poverty. You end poverty the way that China did it, which is 40 years of hard work, a lot of saving, putting your kids through school. This is the most important single step of ending poverty, keeping the economy open, and then poverty will end. And that's true of Africa. And that Africa should follow the Chinese strategy. As a unified Africa, it's the same size as China, and it could have 10% growth per year for the next 40 years, actually. And China can help fund that with the Belt and Road Initiative and with other financing, but it should be done in partnership with the whole world. That's the SDG idea. So just to conclude, what is really, why did the world agree on these goals, and what is really necessary to move them forward? The world agreed in 2015 on the Sustainable Development Goals and on the Paris Agreement because these goals are actually truly important for every country in the world. We will not have stability, we will not have peace, we will not have physical security of Earth systems unless we actually do this agenda. They're not nice things to do. They are necessary things to do. This is pretty well understood in most of the world, actually, because if you don't have the distractions of being a great power, you do have the focus of knowing that you're in trouble. And that is what most of the world feels right now, that it's changing so fast, it's so dangerous. I got up this morning at 5 a.m. to speak to a very small country, feeling that it's caught between US-China politics right now. So they wanted to talk about how to survive in the middle of great power politics. So this 2015 agenda is actually the real agenda. It's not going to go away. It's only going to intensify purpose and in importance. Ukraine, NATO enlargement, Taiwan, these are non-issues compared to the issues we face in reality. And we should stop provoking each other over issues that are not central to human well-being, period. And this is absolutely the basic point. When the 2015 agenda was set, the US-China relations were entering a period of steep decline. And the decline came because the US policymakers panicked at China's rise, starting around 2014. Two initiatives in China startled America. One was the Made in China 2025 program, which could have been phrased better, actually. But China announced, we will lead in 10 technologies. And the document was read in the United States as, we will dominate in 10 technologies. And if China had just said, we will aim to improve in 10 technologies, we would have avoided a lot of conflict. So I think the document was really overstated in a way that raised panic. The second was the Belt and Road Initiative, because China was doing what the United States had done 40 years before, which was with vast wealth and high technology, it had gone out to build an infrastructure that would also support this vast Chinese economy. I'm completely in favor of the Belt and Road Initiative, by the way, because it builds the infrastructure that we need for ASEAN, for Africa, and it really does. When China does something, it builds these things. The US talks about it. Wouldn't it be nice to have a power system? With China, you get a power system. It's a big difference. But this also panicked the United States. So these two events changed US diplomacy in 2015 to a kind of panic almost. And I now understand better. It was then that US foreign policy decided we must contain China's rise. And some of this now can be traced to documents written in those years very clearly. And so the US started really crazy things like creating trade groups in Asia that didn't include China. You have to be mad to aim for this. We're going to have a TPP, it's going to be Trans-Pacific, but not China. I look at a map, China's there every time I look at the map. In fact, it's the main trade partner of every one of the countries. So how can you make a trade system without it? But this, honestly, it's like children. Like, I'm going to have my 7th grade party and I'm not inviting that person. It's really at that level, actually. That's how they think. Okay, this is where we need to absolutely overcome this kind of simplistic, simple-minded mentality. I don't know quite how to do it because in the US, I don't talk to too many generals and they don't talk to me, and they may be the ones really running the show right now. So the politicians have almost no say in this except they're told what to do. And they don't have passports, so they don't know also. So this is really a serious problem. Now, in terms of the economics of this, The basic economics of development, as we were talking about in the past 2 days, is finance, because the core of development is investment. The core of China's success is a massive education of a young generation, the most rapid advance in education in history. Unbelievable. How many years of schooling, quality of research output in a 25-year period, unprecedented in history. So that's the basis. But then 15,000 kilometers of fast rail, 15,000 kilometers of intercity highway, power, 5G. That's all the investment that lifts up this massive economy. If you did the same in Africa, Africa would have the same outcome. Massive education, plus electrification, plus rapid intercity rail, plus these other investments, we would be done with poverty on this planet. And the costs of that are, as we've been discussing, $1 trillion a year, perhaps. Not very much in a $100 trillion economy. China's economy right now is about 18 trillion at international prices. Actually, even larger than that, sorry, at international prices. The US economy is $25 trillion at market prices. This could be done if there was a will to do it. There is no real will to do it in Europe's obsessed with its internal questions and with its security, which is misunderstood. The US is obsessed with being number one. China, I believe, is ready to do a lot for the rest of the world, actually, because it fits China's phase of history as well as mentality and approach to the world. But if we could get everybody together behind this agenda, it would be absolutely wonderful. One of my hopes in this, by the way, is something very particular to China's neighborhood, which is that one of the most important developments that could take place economically and politically and geopolitically would be cooperation between China, Japan, and Korea, because that's something within reach. Northeast Asia would be the center of the world economy if that happened, by the way, which would be terrific. It would be absolutely dynamic. It would help China's finishing touches on development tremendously, and the results for the world would be tremendous. The US works overtime to make sure that Japan and Korea are on the other side of the divide. I think Chinese diplomacy sometimes doesn't help this process, actually, because I think China underestimates how much benefit there would be of a unified Northeast Asia. That's my own view. I think China would be a huge beneficiary of that, and that requires a lot of soft diplomacy, cooperation, and so on. But I'll just end here by saying that the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement are not the hardest part of our story. They require a massive investment effort. They require a focus over a 30-year period, no doubt. They require especially peace and cooperation, and our politicians understanding that investing in our future is a lot better than investing in a new arms race or in geopolitical conflict. And the simplest way to see this was noted by Isaiah in 800 BC, when he noted that you really could turn the spears into pruning hooks and the swords into plowshares. This was a very good idea. Quantitatively today, The arms race, at a minimum, at narrow count, costs $2.2 trillion a year, of which the United States is $900 billion, 40% of the total. If we directed even a fraction of that to the Sustainable Development Goals and the energy transformation, we would get it done. Pope Paul VI had the idea of this in Popolorum Progressio in 1967, directly saying, use your arms spending for development. Popolorum Progressio is the greatest document of development up to Laudato Si, because Laudato Si made it sustainable development. So it's a kind of progression of thought. But the idea that we can afford this, and the real way to afford this is to turn from conflict to cooperation, is the basic truth. And it's quantitatively the truth. And if we could find that level of understanding, we'd actually solve these problems. Thank you.
Komdu inn í hugrana heim 20 Bath.
So, my friends, what did you think of this video? What thoughts come into your minds? Was it easily understandable? I think this was a very, very interesting interview with, if we could say, this is the man in this thing of the climate change and the serious questions. So anyone wants to share their thoughts now?
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Yes, please trigger.
I just want to greet everyone. I hope everybody's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. From the interview, I noticed and realized that we've seen that most of the things which happen around us are being caused by some other people. So it gets to a point where they stand in as the main factor of the problem, and when the matters arise to a certain extent, they start claiming that they can fix the issues, all in the aim of getting revenue from the same problem that they are the ones who created them. So from all education and from all what the interview is all about, because I noticed one part where he said he knows some generals that he cannot even talk to. Why? Because they don't even act as if they care. So that's just an eye opener that it's really good if you are going in for something. You should be pure. You should be real. Like, you shouldn't fake it. Yeah, you shouldn't fake it. If you're standing in as a humanist, you should work as a humanist. If you are not standing in as a humanist, don't better be. It's not good to be one leg in, one leg out. It's really, really bad. It's terrible. That's why we face a lot of problems today in our various societies. Because when we come up with ideas or things or programs like these, people just come in and pretend to be who they are not. That's why you see most of these good kids falling every day. You know, people getting injured, people getting worried, people getting the lost focus. Why? Because most of those who come in the name of aiding other people are just there to use people instead, which is not fair. It's good if you are coming in for a good heart, like a good mind, that you want to do a good work. You should do it diligently. No need for you to be beating around the bush. Because the more you do that, you realize that even what you're gaining from, you gain it to a certain extent, it will turn to be important to you. Why? Because you're taking it. Yeah. So if you're here, it's good you are here. If you're not, it's good you shouldn't be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trigger. Thank you very much for this. Was very nice to hear from you. And I think we would need to make this like a finishing words, because we are going to the limit of the meeting. It's almost 1.5 hours. This time a little bit more than usual. But thank you very much for this great meeting of ours and everything you have contributed. And for all of you, peace, force, and joy.
Peace, Posh, and joy.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you. So I will now take care of finishing the recording properly. So I will just take here, manage recording. And here, stop recording and stop recording.